Well, welcome everyone to Living Beyond Limits. If you do not know, I'm Reverend Jennifer Spear. We are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living, and it is my honor to welcome you this morning. I'm so glad that you've come to share your morning with us. And if you are new to us today, from the very bottom of our hearts to yours, we're so glad that you joined us today. And so let's begin our service today by reading our mission statement that's on the front of your bulletin. We are a sanctuary where people can discover and reveal the presence of God within their own being and experience their oneness with all life. Through the realization of this inner presence of love and peace, we give way to the evolutionary impulse of the divine and become a beneficial presence in the world. So, back to what I was saying, that is exactly what we are doing here at Living Beyond Limits through the words that are spoken and the songs that are sung and the readings that are done, is we are moving back into that awareness that yes, indeed, that infinite presence, that one and only, is always right where we are. That it not only surrounds us and envelops us, but it also expresses itself within us. And that means then that the peace that God is, the love that Spirit is, the wisdom that is the very fabric, the intelligence of Spirit, lives within us. That means then that we can never be separate or apart from any of those characteristics of the Spirit, because it is what we come from. It is what animates us. It is the very life that lives itself through us. So what happens then is when we are out in the world and the world is not being kind or loving or generous or peaceful, we are not such victims to that, because we can always turn within and find that peace within our hearts. Find the love within us and bring that into the world, which acts as a healing presence, not just to those outside of us, but acts as a healing presence to ourselves. And as we do that, we are actually allowing Spirit to unfold itself in ever greater ways through us. So we are participating in that ever unfolding of the divine itself. And so I thank every single one of you for answering the call of your own spirit to be walking this path, to be bringing that presence into this world in a way that is indeed beneficial. Thank you for that. Well, I have a question for you. Do you sometimes think that people know what you think, or what you feel, or what you mean, or even what's important to you without you directly actually telling them? Your wife does. And if you don't say something to them and tell them directly, you actually think they should know what you think and feel and what's important, because after all, they know you so well. Do you do that? You know, I work as a hairdresser 2 days a week for like 45 years or something, and I assume that my clients know that it's important to me that they are on time, so that I can actually stay on schedule for the rest of the day for my other clients that show up. I also assume that people know that it is annoying to talk on their cell phone on speakerphone, or to watch videos with the speaker on when there is a captive audience in the room they are in, like you're waiting at a doctor's office and you can't leave the room. I assume people know that that is annoying to other people. I also assume that when I have a client sitting in my chair at the salon, that they know that it's annoying to me if they answer their cell phone while they're getting their hair done. I called my mom yesterday, and she answers the phone. She says, "Oh, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of getting my hair done." Well, I will tell you, so you don't have to assume anything, your hairdresser does not want you to answer your phone when you're sitting in their chair. Do you assume that your friend knows that you have your feelings hurt when they don't invite you over to their house often or ever, or when they invite other people? You know, we make all these assumptions. Do you also assume things about other people, like how they think or how they feel or what their motivation is or what's important to them or what they mean, without actually asking them? your boss doesn't give you the promotion, so you assume that your boss doesn't think that you're doing a good job. Or your partner isn't very talkative, so you assume that they're mad at you. Do you ever do that one? Or you assume because one of your friends has 2 tickets to go somewhere and doesn't invite you to go with them, that somehow your friendship must be faltering. We assume all sorts of things like that. We also make assumptions just about life. Do you ever find that you're waiting for the results of a medical test, and then you run down that road of the worst possible scenario that might happen? Or you have time coming where you're going to be spending extended time with your family, and you already are assuming that it's not going to be very much fun and you're kind of dreading it? Or do you just assume that people think like you do about all sorts of different things in the world? And also, when we get into worrying about something and what ifs, that's assuming also. It's making a negative assumption that is not based in the truth. I saw a bumper sticker years ago that I loved that said, "Don't believe everything you think." Isn't that awesome? Don't believe everything you think. So we're doing class right now, the 4 agreements, and the agreement that we are on right now is make no assumptions. The problem is when we make assumptions, we believe that they are the truth. And then when reality, what's happening is our assumption is really just based on some story that we are making up in our own minds that is not based in truth. I read something this week that says, my top 3 assumption when the doorbell rings. 1, murderer. 2, the police telling me everyone's dead. 3, the book that I ordered about positive thinking. Oh, yeah. So the story that we're making up really is just a guess. And it's often a projection. It's a projection of our values. It's a projection of our fears, of our insecurities. It's a projection of our rules, our indoctrination of what things should be. It's often a projection of our thoughts and our feelings. I think that's just so great to think of that one that when your spouse is not talking and you think they must be mad at you. That is our own insecurities that we are projecting that has nothing to do with what's happening. We are hardwired with a negativity bias. So oftentimes what happens when we make an assumption is we make a negative assumption rather than a positive one. I mean, when your spouse is late coming home, do you think, oh, they must have run into an old friend and they're having a really good time talking? Or do you think, oh my gosh, I wonder if he got in an accident? We do the negative stories where we automatically go. And sometimes what happens with those stories that we make up, we end up feeling bad, or we end up feeling bad about ourselves. And sometimes that assumption that we make that makes us feel bad then can start this downward spiral in our thinking. Ruiz, who wrote the book The 4 Agreements, said, making assumptions is just looking for drama where there is no drama happening. He also said, assumptions are nothing more than lies we are telling ourselves. But what happens when we make an assumption, we are convinced already in our minds that it's the truth or that it's the answer, and then what happens is we stop listening. We stop being curious. We stop asking questions. We stop looking for other possibilities of what might be happening or what that person might be thinking or feeling. As human beings, it's so important to us. We have such a deep need to know, to understand. We have a need to know that we are standing on solid footing because then we feel safe. We have a need to be sure. We have a need for certainty. That makes us feel safe. But what happens then is we make up stories that aren't based in reality just so we don't have to be in uncertainty. just so we don't have to be in a place of limbo, just so we don't have to sit with a question, we'll make something up. It's like we want everything to fit into this little box. We want all of our ducks to be in a row, because if our ducks are in a row, then we will know what to do with whatever it is that's happening. We feel somehow if we know, it puts us in the driver's seat, even if what we know isn't based in reality. And oftentimes, we really aren't even aware of the fact that we're making an assumption. We just think that's the way things are. So there's a story that I'd like to share with you that I'd read this week. It says, a man observed a woman in a grocery store with a 3-year-old girl in her basket. As they passed the cookie section, the little girl asked for cookies, and the mother told her no. The little girl immediately began to whine and fuss, and the mother said quietly, "Now, Monica, we just have half of the aisles left to go through. Don't be upset. It won't take long." And soon they came to the candy aisle, and the little girl began to shout for candy. And when she told she couldn't have any, she began to cry. The mother said, There, Monica, don't cry. Only 2 more aisles to go, and then we'll be checking out." And when they got to the checkout stand, the little girl immediately began to clamor for gum and burst into a terrible tantrum upon discovering there'd be no gum purchased. The mother patiently said, "Monica, we'll go through the checkout stand in 5 minutes, and then you can go home and have a nice nap." The man followed them out to the parking lot and stopped the woman to compliment her. "I couldn't help but noticing how patient you were with little Monica," he began. Whereupon the mother said, "I'm Monica. My little girl's name is Tammy." We make all sorts of assumptions all the time. You know, if we have a need to know what's going on, if we have a need to know what people are thinking and what they're feeling and what their motivation is and what's important to them and what they mean by what they said, why don't we just ask? Ruiz says, we make all sorts of assumptions because we don't have the courage to ask. You know, honest and clear communication requires courage, and it requires taking risks, and it requires trust. It takes courage to move through the fear of what we think might happen, might be said, what we might discover. It takes courage to start the conversation. It takes taking a risk that we might not like the answer that we get, a risk to be vulnerable and open, and it takes trust, mostly trusting ourselves. Trusting ourselves that we have what it takes to handle whatever comes up. Trust that we have our own backs. Trust that we will be on our side. Trust that we will take care of ourselves. That's really what it's about. And sometimes it requires that we feel like we need to trust the other person. We need to trust them to be honest. Trust them to not purposely be hurtful towards us. But really, I think the self-trust is so much bigger and so much more important in order to be vulnerable and ask the questions. And it takes willingness to be vulnerable. Underlying that unwillingness to ask the questions is always fear. Fear of being disappointed, fear of not getting what we want, fear of being found out for who we are, fear of being rejected, fear of being hurt. And so the title of my talk today is, That's Not What I Thought. As in, reality often does not match our assumptions. And I'm talking about that when we make an assumption, we create stress for ourselves and our relationship. We create angst within ourselves. We create discomfort. And we create a bunch of drama oftentimes for nothing. What happens also when we fail to ask those questions and we make assumptions is we create less intimacy in our relationships. They're not as close as they could be. I had somebody tell me just recently that she had a misunderstanding with her best friend and didn't say anything. And then it happened again and didn't say anything. And then she said, you know what? We sat down and talked about it and resolved what was happening, and we are closer to each other than we've ever been. That's what happens when we're vulnerable. That's what happens when we're honest. That's what happens when we reveal ourselves and reveal our hearts to another person. We want to be known, and we want to know other people. And when we do not make assumptions, we raise our own vibration and we raise the level of that relationship. When we ask the questions, we experience a greater connection with that person, and we really get to see them, and we really get to know them, and they really get to see us and know us. In turn, we love to a greater degree and are loved in return to a greater degree. And isn't that what we are here for? To share love, to experience love, to be love on this planet, which is that divine presence expressing itself. So in order to not make assumptions in your life, I think it begins by just recognizing when you are making an assumption. You can ask yourself things like, do I know for absolute certainty that this story that I'm telling myself is the truth? Without a doubt. Is there something else that is possible? Is there another possibility of what this might mean or what's happening here? To ask yourself, what else might be true in this moment? To ask yourself, do I have fears or insecurities or worries that I'm actually projecting into this situation? Because if they're our fears and our insecurities, they are ours to heal. And when we heal those, then we create a safe space for ourselves, and we create a safe space for others to be in relationship with us. But they're ours to heal. You know, your assumptions are like a Rorschach test. Shows exactly what's going on inside of you that you're projecting onto whatever's happening. So if you're not sure about what someone said or meant or what they think or what they feel, you can ask them. You can say things like, tell me more about that. Or you can say things like, how do you feel about this particular thing? What do you think about this particular thing? Tell me what you meant by fill in the blank, whatever they've said. Tell me more. Tell me why this is important to you. I'm confused. Can you help me understand? You ask those questions without judgment, but with curiosity. No judgment ahead of time, just curiosity to know. So the invitation really is to be clear with people in your life, to ask for what you want, be willing to share your own inner experience and what's real for you and what you think about things and how you feel about them, why they're important to you. You know, it's amazing to me, I've had the experience so many times, when someone tells me their why this is important, it shifts everything. Oh, well, now it makes sense. Of course I want to help you or support you or assist you or move or whatever it is. Oh, when I understand your why, Share with other people your why, or ask them why with real curiosity. And if you believe that if you have to ask, then it doesn't count, you're living in a fairy tale. That's not this world. Do you know that? You all know that mental telepathy joke? Exactly. We cannot read each other's minds. We can't read each other's minds. You have to ask. You have to explain. You have to tell them what's real inside of you, and you have to ask those questions. And so my invitation to you really is to love yourself enough to not make assumptions, so that you don't have to create angst and drama all for nothing. Love yourself enough to ask the other person for clarity. Love yourself enough to convey your thoughts and your feelings to the people that are in your life so they can understand you, and so you can have a closer relationship. So you can have more intimacy. So you can have more peace in your relationships. Convey your feelings and your thoughts. And as a result, you will feel more peaceful. Your relationships will be more peaceful. And in turn, the world will be more peaceful. You will have closer relationships and more fulfilling relationships. And so blessings to every single one of you on this path of discovering your own I amness within you, resting and being safe and secure in that, so that you can risk in this world being vulnerable and honest and truthful and not have to make assumptions. Blessings to all of you. Hey, Rick Dale, you want to come up here and pray with me? Rick Dale is a practitioner also. We're going to let you start.
What I know is that there is only God. Everything in this world, everything in this universe is God. And that power and that presence fills every corner of this universe. And that power and that presence formed each and every one of us in its image and likeness. And it knows what we're thinking and what we are living, and it lives through us. And so, what I know is that each of us here is now here, letting that power and that presence guide us, inspire us, move us, comfort us, live through us. And I give thanks for it. And I pass.
And so resting in that consciousness, in that vibration, I recognize that truth. That yes, indeed, that infinite one is everywhere, in every moment, in every situation, in everything that is happening, and in every next moment. And so today we lean into that presence, knowing that as we lean in and open ourselves, that it flows into us and through us as love, as courage and strength and willingness to risk, that it speaks in us as our own wholeness and our own enoughness and our own goodness. For when we are connected to that, we are absolutely safe and secure. That means then I know that we are always, always safe and secure. And so today we move out into this world as a light. We move out into this world giving way to that divine presence of love and peace and joy, of connection, as abundance and generosity and care. That we are giving way to that presence today in a way that is indeed beneficial to all. And so I speak this word not just about us, but I speak this word about every single person on this planet, knowing that they too are an outpicturing of that presence, and that all that God is, all that Spirit, the divine, the infinite one is present within them also. And therefore, I claim and know that the absolute intelligence of the cosmos right now is acting through every single politician, every single decision maker, every single person who is making decisions and choices and has an effect on this world right now. That presence is fully there, expressing itself through their minds, through their hearts, through their hands, through their actions and words. That every answer that we need to solve every problem is already held, contained within this mind of God. And that mind is revealing itself into and through humanity right now. I speak this word knowing that the abundance of the divine unfolds itself in every person's life, that the love of that Spirit unfolds itself through all hearts, and that we are each a blessing to each other. And so I release this prayer into that creative womb of the universe, knowing that it is unfolding itself right now. And we just get to be privy to it. And so I release this word, and in gratitude I say, and so it is. And so I have a couple of invitations for you as a way to participate in this Living Beyond Limits family. One is next week. Next week's the 25th. Yes, we are in the park. So we're going to be meeting in the park on the other side of this building and do Sunday service in the park and have a picnic afterwards. So we invite you to bring a dish to share and to hang out in the park with us. We'll have a good time. To let you know that Pat and Mike are still doing an outreach program with the homeless, and talk with them if you would like to participate with them. We have prayer support after service. If you would like to sit with a practitioner, will you raise your hand if you're a practitioner? They're happy to sit down and do a prayer with you. We have prayer shawls in the back. If you would like to be wrapped in the energy of prayer, you are welcome to take a prayer shawl home if you want to gift it to someone or for yourself. The practitioners are happy to pray over it before you leave for whatever your desire is. And we have a ministry of prayer box in the back. You can fill out a prayer request if you'd like us to support you during the week. We will do that. And we invite you to follow us on our social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and meet up and check in and say you're coming and like the things that we post and share them. And so I invite you to repeat after me, good fills my life now. I recognize it. I savor it. I own it. I live it. And so it is.